Hello and welcome to the program DPR, the Petroleum Industry Regulator. Today our focus is on the pipeline integrity. As you may be aware, pipeline is said to be the cheapest, the safest and the most ideal means of transporting fluid and gas over a long distance. It can be used to transport granulated solid materials like coal. In houses, pipes are used to supply water and even to move sewage. Its uses are complex and extremely important. However, our focus today is on the importance and integrity of this means of transportation in the oil and gas industry, especially in Nigeria, and what the Department of Petroleum Resources is doing to monitor its integrity and regulate the use. Now, but before we go into details, we must take our usual DPR tidbits. I'm Sulaiman. The recent NNPC pipeline fire incident, which occurred at Ilepo Abulegba in Alimosho local government area of Lagos State, is an indication that many Nigerians are yet to learn their lessons from previous ugly incidents of similar dimension. The explosion, which caused a devastating inferno, was attributed to the activities of pipeline vandals, or better still, oil thieves. Now, Lagos State Emergency Management Agency LASEMA confirmed that 5 people, including a 5-year-old girl, lost their lives and many others were injured in the January 19th tragedy. Now, the agency ordered that 11 buildings, 17 shops, 3 trucks and 3 tricycles were also destroyed by the fire. The Group Managing Director NNPC, Mr. Melekari, has visited the scene, saying it was all due to the unpatriotic acts of vandals. On December 5, 2019, a similar fire outbreak was reported at Gloryland Estate, Isheri Olofin, also in Lagos State, in which several people were feared dead. The monthly financial and operations reports from the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) has revealed that the federal government of Nigeria spent a colossal sum of 566 billion naira on repairs and maintenance of oil pipelines across the country between January 2015 and June of 2019. Analysis carried out by the cable showed that within the mentioned time frame, pipelines in the nation were vandalized 8,353 times. The NNPC report added that the vandalism incidents over the 5-year period occurred at Mosimi in Ogun State, Kaduna, Port Harcourt, Warri, and Gombe. Also, according to the Nigeria Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative (NAITI), more than 204 million barrels of oil, valued at 4.015 trillion naira, was lost to oil theft and vandalism, while 129 billion naira was spent on repairs and maintenance from 2015 to 2019. Despite financial and security measures adopted by the government to curb it, incidents of vandalism have persisted with its unfortunate attendant consequences of explosions, death, oil spillages, and pollution. Pipeline in the oil and gas industry, analysts say, is the cheapest and safest means of transporting crude oil, refined petroleum products like premium motor spirit, diesel, aviation fuel, or natural gas over a very long distance. Now, research on the use of pipelines showed it is about 50% cheaper to move crude oil, petroleum products, or gas by pipeline than rail. It is even 3 times cheaper using pipelines than trucking these hydrocarbons. Now, in Nigeria, pipelines are the most ideal means of transporting crude oil from wells to export terminals and refineries. It is even cheaper and safer to move petroleum products to consuming depots through pipelines than truck. But to construct these pipelines and lay them requires close supervision and regulation. They must conform to the laid-down laws, rules, as well as regulations. Now, this is where the Department of Petroleum Resources comes in. You'll get to know more about this background report.
A pipe is a tubular or hollow cylinder, usually, but not necessarily of circular cross-section. It is used mainly to convey substances which can flow, something like liquids, gases, slurries, powders, and masses of small solids. It can also be used for structural applications. Hollow pipe is far stiffer per unit weight than solid members. In common usage, the words pipe and tube are usually interchangeable, but in the construction industry and engineering, the terms are uniquely defined. Depending on the application standard to which it is manufactured, pipe is generally specified by a nominal diameter with a constant outside diameter and a schedule that defines the thickness. However, both pipe and tube imply a level of rigidity and performance. They are different from a hose, which is usually portable and flexible. Pipe assemblies are almost and always constructed with the use of fittings such as elbows, T's, and so on, while a tube may be formed or bent into custom configurations. For materials that are inflexible, cannot be formed, or where construction is governed by codes or standards, tube assemblies are also constructed with the use of tube fittings. However, our focus is on pipe. There are different types of pipes. Some of them are made of iron and steel, while some others are made of plastic material, copper, brass, aluminium, and glass. Pipes can also be molded from the mixture of sand, granites, pebbles, and cement. But this tubular material or pipe is joined together through the process of welding or the application of gum or cement and sand to become a pipeline. Pipes can be used to deliver water to houses through plumbing. It can be used for sewage and in agriculture. It can also be used in the movement of crude oil, gaseous materials, and solid materials like powders. Our concentration, however, is on the use of pipes in the oil and gas industry. They are used to convey Nigeria's most important products: crude oil, natural gas, and refined petroleum products. Nigeria has 5,800 kilometers of crude oil and condensate pipelines, 5,200 kilometers of gas pipeline, and 5,000 kilometers of petroleum products pipelines. Most of these pipelines connect the crude oil fields and wells to the company's tank farms, where the crude oil, gas, and impurities are separated before pumping into the export terminals, refineries, and gas pipelines to LNG plant at Bonny in Rivers State. These pipelines are interconnected with valves, meters, and booster pumps for easy transportation. Some of these pipelines are Shell Nigeria crude oil and gas pipelines, which crisscross the Niger Delta. Others are the 674-kilometer Escravos Kaduna Refinery crude oil pipeline, 206 kilometers, 10, 14, 24, and 36 inches diameter Kwale Brass crude oil pipelines. Some of the other major gas pipelines include 340 kilometers, 36 inches diameter Escravos Lagos gas pipelines. This pipeline is also part of the Lagos Takoradi 1,033 kilometers gas pipeline. There are also the Warri Lagos 312 kilometers 12 and 15 inches gas pipelines and Oben Ajaokuta 294 kilometers 24 inches gas pipeline. The same line supplies Dangote Cement Factory at Obajana in Kogi State. The products pipelines are constructed by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC). These pipelines link 22 products depots from the 4 refineries in the country. It is a 5,000 kilometers length pipeline, and the longest of these pipelines link Kaduna Refinery and Maiduguri depots with 1,050 kilometers, 3, 4, 6, and 12 inches diameters pipeline, to be precise. All these pipelines and the proposed ones to be built are under the supervision of the Department of Petroleum Resources. However, before crude oil, liquefied petroleum gas, and petroleum product pipelines are laid in the country, the following steps must be taken. 1. Application for permit to survey with the attached map by the oil and gas company must be presented to the Department of Petroleum Resources. 2. Public notification of the intention must be made in newspapers by the Department of Petroleum Resources and many others. And 3. Approvals for the types of pipe to be used and the welding and laying must be monitored and regulated by the Department of Petroleum Resources. The Department of Petroleum Resources must therefore recommend and approve the types of pipe coating that prolongs durability of the pipelines. The pipelines must constantly be subjected to periodic pigging operations for internal cleanup based on world best practices. DPR also conducts integrity tests of the pipelines once in 5 years, though the periodic test may be reduced to 3 years depending on the outcome of the previous results. However, in spite of the investments, strategic importance, and the labor involved in the setting up of these pipelines, they are constantly vandalized by some unscrupulous elements in our society. This act has claimed many lives and property. Today, crude oil pipeline vandalization is more of a daily affair, and product pipelines between the Atlas Cove and Mosimi in Ogun State has claimed uncountable lives and property. Yet, people do not learn any lesson.
This is a special announcement from the Department of Petroleum Resources. Do not keep petrol in jerrycans inside your rooms. Ensure that it is kept well outside the living environment and away from children. Avoid using your cell phone in petrol filling stations during refueling of your car. It can cause spark and ignite fire. Do not smoke or use naked light where petrol is being stored or sold. Turn off your car engine at filling station when buying fuel in your tank. Avoid filling your generating set with petrol when the engine is still running. Always ensure that the engine is switched off. Ensure that when pouring petrol into a container, it is done in a ventilated area and in safe manner. For more information, visit the nearest DPR office or our website www.dpr.gov.ng.
Thank you very much for that report. I'll now hand you over to Anthony Amusu for an in-depth interview on the subject matter.
Thank you, Suleiman, and welcome to this segment of the program. Today we'll be talking to Engineer Joseph Giam Musa. He is the Assistant Director of Facilities, Engineering and Standards Division at the DPR. Engineer Musa, you're most welcome to this segment of the program.
Thank you very much, Anthony.
And then we want to start by looking at, when we talk about pipelines, we see them all over the oil-producing areas. What do we mean by pipelines, and what are their uses in our country, Nigeria?
I want to define pipeline as a regulator because the technical people have the definition for pipeline. So, but when you go to the Pipeline Act, Part 3, Section 11, Subsection 2, it defines pipeline as a pipeline that is used for conveying natural gas, mineral oils, or any of its derivatives or components. It also any of the substance, whether steam, water, that is used or is intended to be used in production or refining or moving of natural gas or mineral oils or any of its components or its derivatives. So that is what the Pipeline Act defined natural pipeline.
Okay. So what are their uses in Nigeria, and how important are they in the oil and gas industry?
I would say pipeline is very, very important because without pipeline, there's no way we can produce the oil. Because when they discover the oil from the ground, you discover that you need the pipeline from that point in time to move the product or the hydrocarbon from that reserve or reservoir up to the point where it is being used. That is why the Pipeline Act, like I defined it, says it's used for conveying. So it's used to move this hydrocarbon from the point where it is discovered to up to the point where it is being used.
So can you tell us the length of these pipelines in the country? I know there are different categories. We have for the crude and oil and the condensate. Can we know the mileage of those ones?
The mileage, yes, but you know, you will be surprised that you will not go to one point and you will be able to get them, because most of them, they are depending on field where it is being operated. So, but in total sum from our records, we discovered that we have about 5,800 of the crude and the condensate pipeline in kilometers.
Okay, and then
for the gas, we have about 5,200 kilometers. And then for the product, that's the white product, we have about 5,000. So in total, we have about 16,000 kilometers of pipeline.
Okay. Would you say that there are some major pipelines and all pipelines are pipelines? There's no major one, there are no minor ones?
Well, actually, every pipeline is very important, no matter the size or the diameter of the pipeline, because without it, you cannot be able to achieve the purpose of the oil and gas production. But if you're asking me to mention some of the pipelines, I will do, because I want to tell you that every pipeline is major.
Okay.
Because once you take it, the operation stops. So some of the major pipelines, especially the one that our president, Mr. President, announced, we have the Calabar, Umuahia, Ajaokuta pipeline, which is meant to move gas from Calabar up to Ajaokuta to service the domestic market that needed gas around that area. Then we have the one that is also in design, which is the Ajaokuta Kano Katsina pipeline, which is meant to also open up that axis to supply gas. We have the major one, which is the Esclavos-Lagos pipeline, that is meant to service the Esclavos-Lagos axis, where Egbin power plant is getting its own supply. We also use that same pipeline to service the West African gas pipeline project that service our West African neighbors. And then we also have the Esclavos Kaduna pipeline that also deliver the crude. So we have the one that services the Port Harcourt refinery that deliver the crude. We have the one that also is moving product. That is the one that delivers to Mosimi. So that one, it carries product. So we have a lot of pipelines, and all of them are major, because once we take them out, then the activity will stop.
Yeah, the way the pipelines are strewn over the country, some people wonder, do they really have to be on the surface? Could there have been any other way these pipelines are laid so that they are not obviously on the surface, that leads to all this easy vandalism of the pipelines?
Actually, you know, when you are laying an infrastructure, for instance, like the pipeline, you put it in such a way that you can easily monitor it. You can easily have access if you need to repair it, in case if there's any damage or there's any issue with it, you can access it. So the best place to put much of pipeline is on the surface. But because we know that there are some terrains where the pipeline has to pass through, you cannot be able to leave them on the surface, so we bury them. And according to the Pipeline Act, we can bury a pipeline up to 1.5 meters. But we discover also, like you rightly mentioned, because of vandalism and act of sabotage. Right now, you discover some of the pipeline, we are even putting them in bunkers to be able to prevent any sabotage because of the criticality of that pipeline. Once the pipeline is taken out, you know, you cannot access it. But majorly, we try to put pipeline on the surface to allow for easy access.
Let me ask this question. In the developed world, where these major oil companies come from, is that how the pipelines are laid on surface in their country?
Yes. In their countries, depending on the terrain, there are some areas you put them on the surface. Then there are some areas you bury them, like I said, depending on the activity around. Although the right of way of that pipeline is actually, cordon. For instance, if you go to a place where you have a major highway, you cannot put it on the surface. You have to go under the highway and lay it. So so it's all over. It's a international standard.
So are the pipelines the cheapest means of transporting all these products from one point to another?
Wow. When you talk about the cheapness, it all depends on the design of that pipeline and how far the pipeline can go. If you are talking about non-compressible fluids, and when I say non-compressible fluid, I talk about crude oil, I talk about petroleum products. These are products that we know exist within the same phase. It is cheaper to move them with a pipeline to far distance. Why is it cheaper? Because you have a continuous flow of that product. And so you move more volume at a given time than when you move them in trucks. For instance, our PMS. If we can move them in pipeline, we will move lots of PMS to certain locations than moving them in tankers of 33,000 liters. So you are moving in barges. You kind of reduce, and the cost, every tanker that moves, the cost is still the same than when you keep on moving them continuously through a pipeline. But if you look at compressible fluids like gas, if you are going to move gas from one location to another location, especially to a further distance, it is not cheaper to use pipeline. Because why? You can compress that fluid and get more volume in one place and move it than to be flowing the gas itself. So that is why you find out that when you're talking about gas, you see Nigeria moving gas in the form of LNG via ship. Rather than lay a pipeline from here to Europe, we move them in ships. So it depends.
Okay. So these pipelines, what is their lifespan?
The pipeline normally is designed to last for 25 to 30 years. That is design. But however, with proper maintenance and surveillance, you'll be able to extend the life of a pipeline.
So like how many more years?
Well, in history, there are pipes that have existed for almost 100 years with good maintenance and integrity checks. So you can keep a pipeline running, Depending also, let me not just say like that, it also depending on the geographical location where it is being operated. Because there are some environmental factors that affect a pipeline, can reduce the life of a pipeline, even when you design it for 25 years. However, engineering has taken consideration of that. And so most of the time we design towards that environment. And so, but even with the maintenance, because the environment is very harsh, you cannot be able to extend it longer.
How does DPR monitor these pipelines and their integrity?
When the companies are applying, or when an individual is applying for a pipeline license, there is, in the Pipeline Act, there is a section we call the Schedule 3. In that Schedule 3, it's expected, even at the point of application, the company needs to explain to DPR clearly how they intend to maintain and also inspect these pipelines. Some of them, it can be a risk-based inspection technique. Risk-based in the sense that based on the condition where the pipeline will work and the design criteria, then it can determine at what frequency they will be carrying out maintenance and also checking the integrity of the pipeline. Or it can be prescriptive, that is time-based, as specified in our mineral oil safety regulation, which gives for a very new pipeline, after a certain period, you have to carry out a maintenance and also carry out integrity inspections. And some of these inspections, if I may want to say, there are techniques that they use them, but the common one that we use is the intelligent pigging that you do to get the data on the pipeline.
How does DPR ensure that whatever is stipulated or put on paper is actually carried out?
Yes, that is very true. But DPR has put checks and balances to make sure that what they put to us on paper is actually what they are carrying out. We normally do that through annual pipeline audit.
How are you working with the NNPC, the police, army, the armed forces generally, and all of them to secure the right of way of this pipeline?
Our present director, in his own wisdom, back in 2015, established a unit in DPR called the Technology Adaptation Unit. And in the Technology Adaptation Unit, what they do is they look out for new technologies that can be adapted into our own environment in order to facilitate or to enhance our operations. So one of the ways that we use in monitoring, which already some companies have deployed it, the use of drones. You know, the drones now flies over the kilometers that I've mentioned to be checking for activities. And once these drones, some of them, the drones are such that they are not armed yet, you know, because before some people, some of these drones have cameras. So whenever they see these activities, they will be able to snap the activity, if possible, even capture the faces and transmit it to the base station.
Thank you so much, Engineer Musa.
Much.
This has been very educative. We thank you so much for your time, for being on the program.
This is where I draw the curtain on today's program, DPR, the Petroleum Industry Regulator. I believe you enjoyed today's topic. But before I say goodbye, it is your civic responsibility to report any person or persons vandalizing pipelines, be it crude oil or petroleum products, because this act affects you and I one way or the other. Till next week, it's goodbye.